Social and indigenous organizations in Ecuador reiterate their request for dialogue and call to maintain their peaceful demonstrations, while Guillermo Lazo's government announced the suspension of talks. The Truth Commission presented its final report explaining the patterns and reasons of Colombia. The United Nations considers elections the only way to resolve Libya's political crisis. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Ecuador, social, indigenous, and farmers organizations taking part in the national strike call on the government of President Lazo to resume the dialogue. Various social and indigenous organizations raised their voices in favor of dialogue during a new meeting with government representatives. The organization's leaders say they will continue with the indefinite national strike and the peaceful mobilization, which has lasted for 16 days now. Prior to that statement, President Guillermo Lazo had called off the dialogue and disregarded the leadership of the country's indigenous movements. For his part, the president of the Confederation of National Indigenous Peoples of Ecuador, Leonidas Issa, pointed out that crime and drug trafficking are what have harmed the country and not the 16 days of national strike.
Therefore, we also ask from your representation, from the democracy that was elected, not to delegitimize a representation that has been decided by the struggles of the organization, our authorities of peoples and nationalities. Here is not the mobilization. The 16 days of mobilization have not besieged Quito. What has besieged Quito and the Ecuadorian is poverty, crime, drug trafficking, and to solve that, we have had to do a year of dialogue. Not having an answer, we have had to resort to Article 98, but the effort that we must put all should be in that north to banish what has besieged our Ecuadorian society.
Therefore, call on President Guillermo Lazo to resume the dialogue with all sectors of society after Lazo had called off the dialogues.
Mr. President, this dialogue your government has come to with legitimate representatives such as the Minister of Government is open. We as warrantors are willing to meet again when necessary. We call again on all the parties to continue the dialogue. On our part, we cannot say it is over, and we hope that this dialogue will resume as soon as possible, that Ecuador will unite in an effort to move forward.
With a tribute to the liberator Simón Bolívar, authorities of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the People's Republic of China celebrate the 48th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two nations. After the floral offering placed before the sarcophagus of the Father of the Homeland, located in the National Pantheon, the signing of the act where the ceremonial record of the anniversary of the alliance between the two countries was carried out. The document was signed by the Chinese ambassador in Venezuela, Libya, and the Venezuelan Executive Vice President, TeleSUR, who led the celebration ceremony. During her speech, Rodriguez recalled that China was the first country that came with its hands of solidarity and teach the Venezuelan people to fight COVID-19, highlighting the cooperation between both nations, which she said has been very successful.
There is no doubt, dear Ambassador, that we have accomplished great things along these 48 years of diplomatic relations, and this entails an important message for humanity. We may say Commander Hugo Chavez was right in considering China as our big sister nation and in fostering relations with China, and now President Maduro is continuing that policy.
Speaking at a ceremony marking 48 years of diplomatic relations between China and Venezuela, Chinese ambassador to Venezuela, Libya, said the two countries maintain a relationship based on principles of brotherhood and cooperation.
Despite current world circumstances, China Venezuela are joined through friendship and cooperation, working to improve the well-being of both our peoples and of the world in general, to build a new world order.
Venezuelan authorities informed that a tropical cyclone will make landfall on June 29th, affecting 9 coastal states. The National Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology stated that there are already states registering heavy rainfall and strong wind gusts. The national government highlighted that measures must be taken in vulnerable areas. In this sense, civil protection bodies are mobilized. Authorities urge the public to remain calm and to comply with the emergency prevention protocol.
A set of measures have already been taken. The first that I want to announce is the suspension of classes. Wednesday and Thursday, July the 29th and the 30th, respectively. In the states of Sucre, Anzoátegui, Nueva Esparta, Miranda, Caracas, La Guaira, Aragua, Carabobo, Falcón, and Zulia, which is the entire northern coastal area of our country, where sustained winds and rains will have the main impact.
We are now taking a short break. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In Colombia, the Truth Commission presented its findings on the patterns and persistence of the armed conflict in the country. The document presented by the president of the Truth Commission, Jesuit priest Francisco de Roo, called for action and for not postponing peace. Father de Roo said that the final report summarizes thousands of testimonies collected during 3.5 years of work, which translates into a petition to stop the tragedy of a conflict in which 80% of the victims have been unarmed civilians. President and Vice President-elect Gustavo Petro and Francia Marquez attended the report presentation, whereas outgoing Iván Duque did not.
We bring a word that comes from listening to the feelings of the victims, both across the country and in exile, from listening to those who strive so that what happened may not be forgotten, putting up resistance to those in denial, and also the word from those who have accepted ethical, political, and criminal responsibility. A message of truth and total tragedy of a conflict in which 80% of the victims are civilians and not fighters.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador confirmed on Tuesday the death by suffocation of 50 migrants in a trailer found on Monday in the U.S. state of Texas. During his morning press conference, the president offered his condolences to the families of the deceased and announced that his government will support the transfer of the bodies to Mexico and will collaborate in the investigations with the U.S. authorities. López informed that during his meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden on July 12, the main topic will be migration. The Mexican president also indicated that among the deceased are Mexican and Central American citizens, and at least 19 bodies have not yet been identified.
This happens because there is also human trafficking and lack of controls. In this case, at the border of Mexico with the United States and inside the United States.
The Russian government informed about the possibility of ending its military operation in Ukraine if Kiev orders the national nations to lay down their arms. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov assured that Ukraine can bring the conflict to an end. It only needs to order the surrender of nationalist forces and comply with Moscow's security demands. Meanwhile, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that his government seeks to end the fighting before the arrival of winter. In this respect, Peskov pointed out that Russian officials are guided only by the statements of the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and in this sense the operation is being carried out according to plan and all the objectives are being achieved. Russian President Vladimir Putin began on Tuesday a two-day visit to Tajikistan, his second foreign trip this year. The Russian head of state met his Tajik counterpart Emomali Rakhmon. The agenda included bilateral and multilateral talks to discuss cooperation in trade, defense, culture, migration, and other issues. The two leaders also focused on the situation in Afghanistan, with talks covering joint measures to ensure Tajikistan's border security and military construction projects. According to information released by a presidential aide, both leaders covered the guidelines for a strategic partnership, with due account taken for the 30th anniversary of the diplomatic bilateral relations this year. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov condemned reports in Western media accusing the Russian armed forces of shelling civilian infrastructures in the city of Kremenchuk in central Ukraine.
Yesterday, all the media was exploded with videos from Kremenchuk showing footage of a burning shopping center, accusing the Russian military of bombing civilian infrastructure. The Russian Defense Ministry was very clear and said what actually happened at that place.
The Russian foreign minister also assured that the shopping center, which was empty, caught fire as a result of an attack on an arms and ammunition depot.
A depot where American and European arms and ammunition arrived was bombed as a result of such detonation. As a result of the ammunition detonation, the empty shopping mall, which was situated near it, actually caught fire.
More news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. UN Under-Secretary General Rosemary DiCarlo stressed that elections are the only way to resolve differences over the democratic legitimacy of all Libyan institutions. During a meeting of the Security Council, DiCarlo expressed the UN's readiness to facilitate a dialogue between the Prime Minister of National Unity, headed by Abdelhamid Dabaiba, and the head of government appointed by Parliament, Fathi Bashaga. The Undersecretary General also reiterated the need for comprehensive reconciliation based on the principles of transitional justice with a focus on truth, accountability and reform. DiCarlo warned that political divisions could create a tense security environment in and around Tripoli. For the 23 sub-Saharan migrants died and 140 police officers were injured Friday last week when some 2,000 migrants attempted to enter the Spanish enclave of Melilla. The death toll is the highest ever recorded at the only Spanish land border in Africa. The head of the African Union Commission, Chad Moussa Faki Mahamat, denounced the incident and said it was an instance of violent and degrading treatment of African migrants. He called for an immediate investigation into the matter and reminded all countries of their obligations under international to treat all migrants with dignity, prioritizing their safety and human rights while preventing any excessive use of force. The incident will be examined on Wednesday at the UN Security Council. African migrants demonstrating outside the offices of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in the Moroccan capital of Rabat are calling for clarification and justice after dozens of people died trying to cross the fences of the Spanish autonomous city of Melilla.
At the moment, we're asking the Moroccan government to treat the wounded because all the people who were present during this assault were harmed. we were being transported in vans from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. without food or water. What happened that day was that there was a fight between the migrants who wanted to cross to the other side, and the police intervened to beat them up, which resulted in the death of some of our brothers. We asked today to see the bodies and to identify them in order to inform their families in Sudan of what happened.
The UN Human Rights spokesperson Rabina Shamdasani highlighted the concern of the situation of migrants trying to cross from Morocco to the Spanish enclaves of Melilla and Ceuta. She called on the countries involved to ensure an effective investigation.
Deeply disturbed by the deaths of at least 23 African migrants, the injury of at least 76 others as they tried to cross from Morocco into Spain on the 24th of June. We call on the two countries to ensure an effective and independent investigation is held as a first step towards establishing the circumstances of the deaths and injuries and any possible responsibilities, and to ensure that accountability is guaranteed as appropriate. This is the highest recorded number of deaths in a single incident over many years of migrants attempting to cross from Morocco into Europe. Some Moroccan border guards also reportedly sustained injuries during the incident.
The summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization begins in Spain. On the occasion of this meeting, the Spanish government increases the security deployment amidst the rejection of social movements. Since Friday, police presence in the streets and other measures were intensified to maintain control within the framework of the security operation called AIREN. Nearly 10,000 agents were deployed, 6,550 national police officers and 2,400 guards, who will be joined by members of the Municipal Police of Madrid, firefighters, emergency and civil protection, the security of the Royal House, the presidency of the government, and private security. The heads of state participating in the meeting were received on Tuesday evening with a gala dinner at the Prado Museum in Madrid, in which the King of Spain also participated. The people of the Democratic Republic of the Congo began the ceremony to pay homage to former Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, assassinated in 1961 by the colonialist regime of Belgium. The activities are being carried out after his relative finally received, last June 22nd, the remains of the man who is considered a national hero. Our correspondent in Africa, Oscar Repelde, with the following report.
Patrice Lumumba's biological family has fought 20 years in court to learn the truth. Francois was 9 years old from him.
He made us escape to Egypt because he didn't want us to be killed with him.
Patrice Lumumba's remains have been repatriated almost 62 years later, thanks to the family's fight. For the first time, the family had the support of a head of state who needs to broaden his electoral base and is counting on all the resources of the state.
We are happy, but we will be happy when Lumumba's political program is put into practice. We have no spirit of revenge. We only want the truth and nothing but the truth.
The values embodied by Patrice Lumumba in 1960 were brutally wrested from the Congolese people to subject them to a new domination after independence. The spirit of André Blouin, Patrice Lumumba's chief of protocol, who influenced his famous speech of June 30, 1960, lives on in the reflection of today's youth in places like this André Blouin Cultural Center in Quintambo Magazine.
I would ask not only that they bring the remains of the body that they have already brought, but also that they ask for forgiveness, that Belgium ask for forgiveness, and that after that there be reparations. And then we will discover the real story. Why was Patrice killed? They killed him because he had the vision of a better Congo, of a giant Congo, united and
At this cultural center, they maintain that economic domination continues to exist through a political class that should be inspired by the figure of Patrice Lumumba and not be content with personal wealth, but aspire to the common good with solidarity as a weapon to build an independent nation and a good life. Since the war in Ukraine, Bread from this large factory in Kinshasa, for example, has become almost twice as expensive. The increased necessities makes it more expensive. And why? They seek the truth in order to do what Patrice Lumumba used to say, to rewrite history and to strengthen themselves until they become indestructible, despite the manipulations that for decades have imposed wars and governments in the service of a system of resource extraction that ignored Congolese sovereignty.
Desde Kinshasa, Oscar Rebelde para TeleSUR.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories in English. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.